Okay, we're good to go. I think we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, terrific. Well, so I just learned that the new COP presentation, the climate, where all the countries are coming together, is next month, or maybe this month. Is it November?
Is in November.
And where is it? Anybody know?
27.
COP 27?
Egypt. It's in Egypt.
It's in Egypt. Okay. Yeah, we're not going. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Why don't you just go around, say your name, and just one piece of environmental news that struck you this month. Nothing? Okay, just say your name.
I'm Mimi Bertram.
Hi.
And I can advertise Baba Brinkman. He's a climate rapper. He's at COP in Egypt, and he'll be at UW for a public lecture in November.
Great. Linda, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Linda Holman, and since I've been kind of off the grid here, the only thing I can say that happened this month that was really wonderful is in the Animal Acres garden, we grew 60 pounds of grapes.
Great. Wow, that's a lot. Brian.
I'm Brian Saunders, and I guess the environmental news I gotta say is I'm frustrated with that damn data set we've been given. That's about it.
The what?
The data set we've been given with the
The data set, yeah. Tamara.
All right, I am Tamara Erickson, and environmental news. Let's see. I remember hearing something about like voters deciding if the state of New York can borrow money to help fight climate change. I will look more into that, but I remember thinking it sounded interesting.
Anne?
And Utiloy, and the news that caught my eye this month was the massive ice in Greenland, the loss of which is now inevitable because it's past its balance point. And even if we could just flip a switch and take carbon numbers in the atmosphere back to where they were 100 years ago, that ice is now committed to be lost, and it will change our oceans and Greenland and a lot of the intricate web of life regardless. So I'm just glad we're meeting and can make progress.
Okay. Matt?
I'm Matt Sun. I'm struggling to think of like new news stories. Been reading these reports. That's kind of like what my I think they're interesting. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Okay. I did mine. COP. Tracy?
I'm Tracy Fertani, the council liaison, and we got some good news from K4C. The Department of Commerce for the state is freeing 69 million in grants in the coming spring for charging EV charging stations.
Great.
So we should keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I talked with a woman at the Valentine condos. They were saying they don't have charging stations. And so they said, well, only 2 people have electric cars. Well, maybe because there are no chargers getting to them. So, weird thing. Okay, Corey, we'll have you introduce yourself.
Corey Roach, City Lake Forest Park. I saw that they're putting penguins on the endangered species list. So great, but they're getting protected.
Do we have penguins in this country?
No,
So who's list?
Well, maybe, it may be in Alaska, but I don't know. They're,
Penguins are only southern hemisphere, right? They're
Yeah.
only like Antarctica and the surrounding.
So whose list?
I don't know.
Some list.
World Wildlife,
Yeah.
Yeah.
UN something.
Okay, we have a couple of things that we're gonna do tonight. We're gonna, it's a sort of a standard agenda. And we'll get reports from the committees, then we'll take a little bit of look at the data that we were presented. We have, and then sort of other business, and then we're out here. Anybody? I mean, it's what was written essentially. Any problems, changes, alterations? Okay, we have 2 meeting minutes, one from October 26th, one from October 5th, which was the a regular meeting. And then the second one was we had sort of a special meeting that we held as a meeting because we weren't sure how many people were going to come. So I entertain does anybody object to accepting those minutes? Do I do them one at a time? The October 26th minutes? Okay, anybody object to accepting the October 5th? Minutes? Terrific. Okay, do we have anybody any citizens today? No. Okay, so we thought what we do is begin with reports from the subcommittees, and so let's okay, let's see what we can do in 10 minutes apiece, and then if we need more time, we'll take it. Tamara, why don't you go ahead? You seem, I bet you have the most news.
Unmute myself. All right, so we have received just so many survey results back, which is awesome. So do you want me to share my screen and I can kind of highlight some of the results?
Perfect.
Okay.
Do you have access?
Yep, I think I should. All right. So for the, can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, great. So first question, what is your connection to Lake Forest Park? So the majority of people, got about 90% own a home, smaller percentage renting a home, working in LFP, or other. And then here's just some of the results of people who were in the area, most likely visiting the farmers market. And then the next question, do you live in LFP? And then here's people, the other people lived in Shoreline. How concerned are you about climate change? So again, this is interesting. I mean, you have people who are filling out a climate change survey, and 10%, about 26 people are not concerned at all. Majority of people, about 74% very concerned, about 15% somewhat concerned. And so in what ways have you been affected by climate change? So the majority of responses we have experienced negative effects of smoke from forest fires, about 82%. The next 3 are pretty similar. So feeling uncomfortably hot or cold in my home, seeing changes in water levels of lakes and streams, and noticing differences in plant and wildlife. And then we have some of the others down below. Then family or friends have experienced catastrophic effects. We have 14%, which seems pretty high. Then 9% said none of the above. I assume that's part of the 22, and then we had 26 people who said they were not concerned about climate change. I'm assuming those probably fall in the same category. Some of the others, seeing young people who feel overwhelmed and anxious, rabbits, new bugs, stressed trees, increased need to water during summer months. Then, normal effects of ongoing weather, none that have a negative effect on me, changes in our soil and yards. So I won't go through kind of all of these, but they have, a lot of people are saying it's not affected by climate change.
A lot of the comments are gonna have to be dealt with, that's.
Yeah, I mean, some of, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to reading through these in more detail once we get more, but feelings of helplessness because the world's on a collision course. Not enough is being done. A lot of people noticing change, high cost of water. Yeah, very concerned about possibility of fire, not having a neighborhood city evacuation plan. Next one, what are you doing as a result of the changing climate? So the majority of people are limiting their activities outdoors. And then you have adding indoor air filters. It's about 40, almost 46%. And then almost 42% changing my landscape to native plants and pollinators. Adding AC units and or heat pumps, we got almost 39%. And then planting trees to provide shade, at 11% with none of the above. And then we got 28% down here for other. So working from home instead of commuting, planning to buy an electric vehicle. Upgrading windows, driving less because gas prices are too high. We're vegan for ethical reasons. I have no idea why others are not for environmental reasons. And let's see. Oh, some people installing solar panels. And I mean, we have quite a bit of comments. Turning our heat down. A lot of people buying electric cars. So interesting, trying to encourage the Shoreline School District to use less fossil fuel. All right, another added solar power to our home. So if money were not an issue, what would you do to prepare for the effects of climate change? Solarize everything, plant trees, electrify transportation. And this one was interesting. I don't think money is the issue. I think a lack of shared vision at the local level is a challenge. Climate change messaging has been focused on the broader causes and impacts. We need to localize our focus and build capacity at a local level for dealing with it, causes and mitigations. Install solar panels. Let's see. Yeah, system is holding me back. I would buy land and start a sustainable regenerative farm to focus on soil health, install energy efficient appliances, rain barrels, green power, composting toilet. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about going solar.
We haven't thought of that.
And let's see, reduce my, I think it says irrigation volume. Stop this senseless push towards zero carbon. Let's invest in research into new technologies.
I like the one just above that.
Just,
LFP's tree canopy ordinances have odds with having solar panels on your roof.
Yeah.
It is.
Also the
those solar
unreliable.
panels don't reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna speed you up here, Erica.
Okay.
How about we just focus on, this is just on the charts. Just
Okay.
Get the charts. This is, as you know.
This is great. I'm very much looking forward to seeing all this, though.
We'll go over that, rest of that in. Yeah. So let's see, transition to non-fossil fuel transportation. So we had, this is what people want to do. So we got about 50%. I think this is a high. So we said low priority, medium priority, high priority. And transition to non-fossil fuels in homes and businesses. So again, 50% high, about 30% medium. Significantly reducing landfill waste generation throughout our community. About the same numbers there. Same for this one, changing the city's purchasing policy to take into account the climate impact of specific products and services. And then here's some of the others. Again, a lot of people spent a lot of time on this survey. Transition to solely electric vehicles in the city fleet. I was kind of surprised by this, that more people didn't vote this a high priority. And see, establish a library for people to check out electric battery powered. 24% high, 43% medium, 32% low. Install charging stations for electric vehicles. Partner with other cities to influence climate-friendly policy changes on the county state level. So this one, an overwhelming comparatively to others. 60% thought that was a high priority. Build more bike lane sidewalks at about 43%, 44% say it was a high priority. Inform residents about existing incentive subsidies for people and businesses to transition to non-fossil fuels. There was almost 55% thought that was a high priority. Provide incentive subsidies for people and businesses to transition, about 47%. And require all new construction of non-gas appliances. This one was lower, only about 35% thought it was a high priority. Require all new construction to install heat pumps, about 40%. Require that every homeowner selling their home provide potential buyers an energy audit. I was surprised on this one. That was not, I thought it was a great idea. Establish an electric powered community shuttle. Again, not many people thought that was they're very excited about that. And here's all of the other responses. So then, do you drive an electric vehicle? About 18% said yes. This one was, okay, this was a no because
A lot of too expensive.
yeah. So do you bike instead of drive? Almost 16%. So I thought that seemed pretty high for our neighborhood. I was impressed.
Many hills.
Yeah.
I'm too old.
Walk instead of drive. We had about, 52% of people.
But
Again, was surprising.
They're walking my neighborhood.
is that a select all? Can they select both?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
you could say, yeah, I walk because I like to, and I don't because it's too far away.
Yeah, none of it will add up to 100%
Yeah.
so far.
That's what I, yeah.
Yeah. Take public transit instead of drive.
About a third.
Yep. And have a heat pump in your home. Let's see, yes, this one didn't get. So we have 65 yes, 141 no. Have only electric appliances in your home, no gas appliances. That's 34% yes. And have only electric battery powered landscaping equipment, 60% yes, and then 42% no. Is there, and then there's another fill in. Is there anything else you can do to minimize your contribution? Money were not an issue. What would you do? It's another fill in the blank. Do you volunteer in any other groups? And to find current useful information. So about 40% social media websites. And then filled out which ones they use.
What publication?
Pardon?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so where else do you currently find useful climate change information? Majority was other, a lot of friends and family. We said and just different journals, news articles, work.
I'm gonna rush you, Tamara.
Okay. So I'll go with so it highlights of the survey, we'll skip down, is the number of people, here, I'll just stop sharing.
Yeah.
Who had said that they were interested in volunteering. So we had 15 people who wanted to volunteer with our climate action committee, which is awesome. So one of the things we now need to do is to figure out what to do with these people who want to volunteer. Let's see. So other updates. So I know we had talked about for the survey. So we created a Google Doc that we will send around that has, so it has all the, it's like a checkbox. And so we have like let me see if I can link to it.
Amber, can I ask, did you tally up all the paper ones too?
We haven't tallied up any of the paper ones yet, have we?
There's 5,
Oh, there's only 5, okay.
yeah, and I can report them, there's something again, but.
But the good news is we've had about 250 people respond, which is a stunning number. And we're still out it's out in the field for 2 more months, right? Isn't that what?
Yeah, so through the end of December.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. Let's see, send out. If we can put up yeah, so we have the Google Doc sheet. So let me see if I can find that link to it. So for people just to mark off where they are advertising our survey. And then we're also thinking people can go door to door as well. Okay, got the Google Doc up. Let me share my screen again. Okay, make this bigger. So I'll send out the link for all of these. So we just have people, right here, Rotary, Linda's going to do it. And so she checked off the box. So everyone who has a link will be able to have access to this. Just a way for all of us to be able to do this together so that Sarah's not having to keep track of who signed up to do what and if they did it. So if you have any ideas for any other groups or any other way to advertise, or once you go door to door, you just put down kind of the neighborhood or the streets that you hit, and then put your name in parentheses next to it if it's something you want to do, and then you can just check it off after you do it.
And I just to tell you what I've been doing with the apartments is I found who runs them. I find the manager, I send them a note saying, would you distribute this? And for the most part, sometimes you can't find who the manager is. But the Valentine condos and the Forest Park condos are going to send it out to everybody. I've sent it to them, but I know they haven't sent it out yet. And people want to do it. It's a way they can get a voice in the community. So any organization that you belong to, the good news, people can't fill out the form twice on their one computer. They can go to another computer and fill it out. So if they get it twice, we say, oh, isn't that good? We're really doing outreach.
And then for the presentation, we're going to have at Third Place Commons to present the emissions data. We're going to be doing that in January. And prior to that meeting, we're going to present to the City Council to show them our findings. And then, let's see, we also have so Rebecca Rivera, who is the Shoreline School District Board President, will be at our January 3rd meeting. So we discussed that last time. So next month, I'll have a kind of a pre-meeting with her. And I'll find out exactly who from the school district will be joining us. And let's see. What else? I think that's it. Anything else, Sarah? Or anyone else from our subcommittee have anything to add? Oh, our book club. Mimi, do you want to tell us about the book club? No? Oh, you're on mute.
There is my button for unmuting. Yeah, we're going to have a book club. And follow the circles. All You Can Save is the book. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but they have a strategy for creating a safe place for people to talk about work on climate. So it's all the pieces in the anthology are written by women. So it's women focused, but everyone is welcome. And I think one of our founding members, her partner is male and will be coming. So there are males. They suggest that the groups be in sizes of 12. So anyway, we're going to open it up and advertise it to the community and see who picks it up. It's going to be on the shelf at the town center anytime now. So it's so people can get the book there, and we'll see how many people decide that they're interested. It's not a typical way of doing a book club. It's not your traditional book club because it's the goals aren't just to talk about the book. They're to develop community and create a safe space for people to share themselves. So yeah, well, we're going to meet in the last Wednesday of November at their place books at 6 o'clock. That's our first meeting. So
Is that the day before Thanksgiving?
no, after Thanksgiving, the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. No one ever meets and it does anything to do before Thanksgiving. I'd shoot myself. Yeah, no, yeah, the Wednesday after Thanksgiving.
Okay, great. All right, does anybody else have to report? And the data group or the writing up group? Okay, Anne?
Yeah, and I'm not going to have a very large report because a lot of what we would discuss is going to come up in the later part of this session. We had a strong focus on reading the K4C information and background and thinking about how it applied to the work we've been doing to date and our plans for going forward. And I think most of us came away from that convinced that our work is extremely valuable and valid, and we need to carry on with what we're doing to help inform our community and also develop measurables within our own community that are meaningful and sensible and relevant, as we also understand the K4C process and our community's position within that process. So with that, the progress that's been made so far is we've identified a resource for learning more about our solid waste management footprint. And we've got a list of the currently required permits in our community, so we can start tracking how we can check some of our measurables internally. Progress. Slow and steady, nothing extraordinary, but steady progress. And really appreciate the team holding in there and not being too disappointed at what we kind of expected we'd see with the K4C. So that's it.
Jessica, do you have anything?
I'm homesick. Otherwise, no. And so we haven't met. It's been too much for me right now with Anne applying to college and in her senior year and all kinds of other craziness going on the last couple of months. So if we can, but Sarah, I got your email, which I think was a great start to pull together sort of a table of contents for the climate action plan. And maybe Sarah, Matt, and I, and I can't remember if anybody, Linda, I guess, had met with us initially. Maybe on Monday, November 14th, maybe we could meet. whatever time, sometime between like 4 and 6 or something?
Looks okay to me.
Okay, I'll send an email out.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, I think now, I want to share. Do I have to do something special? No. Change my glasses so I can see. We wanted to look at what we get an enormous amount of data from the county. I mean, it just slug full. And some of it's really amazingly useful. Some of it confirms what we already know. And some of it is, we just need to wade in a little more. And I just wanted to do these, you'll see that I just have 4 slides, just sort of what is it that King County was saying about their emissions, and it's not a surprise. They're saying there are 4 places where their emissions, this is countywide in King County, that they're saying that 46% of their emissions are from buildings, 43% from transportation, 5% from land use, 4% from refrigerants, which is kind of a mysterious category to me, and 2% from waste and water and waste and wastewater. And that's not a surprise. That's what we've known from their very beginning. We thought it was buildings and transportation. So none of that's a surprise. Then this was, I thought, interesting. And these were what in the county as a whole were driving emissions. And so what was driving increases in emissions were population, more fossil fuel based electricity. I guess I think those are in the other part of the county. Expanded local economy and increased air travel. The things that they were saying were driving reduced emissions were improved vehicle efficiency, decreased commercial energy use, decreased residential energy use per home. That was interesting, and decreased waste generation per person. So they have, and again, none of that's a surprise, but they have the data that backs all this up. They have also this, which the county loves this diagram. This is the diagram. This is this is what motivates them. And it's not immediately apparent, I don't think, to just people who are running across it for the first time. But what it shows and what the county is going to continue to use as its measure and that will help us do ours is the first dotted line on the top is if we don't do anything, emissions are going to go up and temperatures are going to go up and greenhouse gases are going to go up. The second piece between the black dotted line and the solid red line are the things that are going to, that are already in place, that are going to reduce emissions, And those include things like the Washington Energy Code and the Building Code and internal combustion engine bans that are going to come. So those are things that we, as a Lake Forest Park Climate Action Committee, that's not our purview. We're just cheering those people on to do that kind of stuff. The last wedge, which is those light colored ones between the red lines, it's sort of, that's us. I mean, that's the county as a whole and what it would do, but it's also this wedge diagram reproduces itself on the local level. So we begin to see what we could do on the local level. But that piece that has those dots on it is really what we're working on. And then this is for Brian.
Sarah, I'm sorry. Was that last wedge? Was that for King County or was that for Lake Forest Park?
It's for King County, but there's a duplicate one. I mean, a similar one for Lake Forest Park, which Tracy has. Okay. Show that. Then this is for you, Brian. These are trees, sequestration. So the first one is tree law. Top is tree laws, and the bottom is tree sequestration. And they say we sequester a lot of things, and we should plant more trees. That's what I got out of that, right? Anyway, yeah. And the last is because I'm kind of a visual person. I wanted to know what a metric ton of carbon dioxide looks like, and it's big. It's almost 21 feet by 21 feet by 21 feet. And that's 1 metric ton. And I think that's a helpful image because it turns out, again, Tracy will share this with you. We do like, each of us does 7 tons a year. So that was a big picture for me. So I just wanted, that was just my own wanting to share that with you. Now Tracy's,
Great visual.
yeah, it's from a company called Carbon Visuals. So and it's, yeah, it had to be, you know, credited. But that's what that first part of, and then in excruciating detail, the county lays out these categories of things. And it's very helpful information. It's just a lot of information, lots of charts, lots of graphs and things that we can parse out if we decide we need. So I'm going to stop sharing and then give it to Tracy to look at. He looked at the pieces of data, the section. There was one section, and there are 5 parts in this. This was the very first part. The middle part, you could only use if you had some super duper thing, which now the city has. And Tracy did some parsing out of that.
Okay.
Oh, okay, he's going to do something else while we get ready. Anybody have any questions? Okay.
I'm just going to make one point is I've been doing a deep dive into this data, as you can imagine. And when we look at the tons of carbon equivalent, and we look at the contribution of the city of Lake Forest Park to the entirety of King County, based on the analysis from K4C, which, by the way, I think is an awesome analysis from a county-wide perspective. Our contribution to that total is 0.37%.
Yes.
So I think it's important that we first off recognize the very high value of having the county-wide assessment so that we can get our arms around this very big issue at the scale at which we need to address it, and also fit that into our state scale. But I also want to keep a sense of proportion in terms of understanding how Lake Forest Park as an entity fits into this big picture, and why some of the assumptions and conclusions that are derived for the bigger entity that is King County do not necessarily fit comfortably in the community of Lake Forest Park, and are not necessarily strongly reflective of the issues that we're going to face here in Lake Forest Park. So just perspective in all things.
Let's just hope that people don't take that low number and say, well, it doesn't matter then what we do because we're not that big of a
No, I mean, everything always matters everywhere.
Right.
It's
No,
just
I
that
agree.
when we're moving the big wedges.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, but
Yeah.
as I said, we got to make sure that kind of data, I think, is maybe dangerous. It's good, but dangerous. But yeah.
I'm with you, Brian. Oh, it's scary. Okay.
I'm going to share the screen. It's the right screen. There we are. Okay. So, yeah. So, Corey, so what
Slider down at the bottom.
it's, yeah.
Is that good? And get rid of that top stuff. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Actually.
Yep. So, yeah, all right, cool.
Sometimes we're all going to be fans.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the that Power BI database. It's the third thing that link that Corey sent, and I just picked everything for Lake Forest Park, and so this gives you the total. Let's see, let me start here. The total by sector. This is basically our chunk of it. And sorry, there we go. It's basically not very surprising. The green is transportation related, the blue is built environment. And so unsurprisingly, most of our emissions comes from there. That serious category of refrigerants that Sarah was talking about is up here, a little gray area there. And then to me, basically this purple one really underestimates our consumption, but whatever, it's the way that they do these.
And purple is what?
It's
Solid waste.
solid waste and wastewater. It's not actually consumption. All right, anyway, my point is then that you can look at all these different other data related to emissions based on excuse me. Yeah, so I found this one. Sorry. At some point I'll get good at this.
The internet's really slow right now too.
Okay, well, and not to belabor the point, but what I know these numbers are very small, but I want to display them as much as I can. These are the tables that actually show the metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent that are emitted by both King County in the left column numbers and Lake Forest Park on the right column. And ours is minute, of course, compared to the entirety of King County. But nevertheless, our trend, our emissions tend to track there reasonably well. You notice that the more interesting thing to me is the missing stuff, like land use. Of course, we're not going to have any because look at what they're measuring here: agriculture and tree loss, right? Which not really relevant to us. Similarly, we don't really have any wastewater process emissions, and we don't have any marine vessels and rail. So that's really the main differences between King County and us. We don't have them.
You don't have marine, I thought marine vessels were the part of the off-road stuff.
It is part of the off-road, but if you look on our screen here, they actually count marine vessels and rail separate from off-road equipment, and we definitely have an off-road equipment thing right here,
Probably like the bigger fishing and
like fleets.
and
Is off-road, so is sorry, would off-road equipment then, would that be like boats, like on Lake Washington?
Well, not as far as I can tell. I mean, they have a big one methodology thing that I have to admit I only skimmed through. Principally, I was looking to make sure they counted things like lawnmowers and leaf blowers and things like that. They did. But yeah, I'll look again and see if boats are pleasure craft are specifically there.
But I think it also is, construction site.
Right.
That's correct. It's, backhoes, bulldozers, power shovels, general construction equipment.
So there's no time series, unfortunately, for us because they only did 1 year of emissions analysis. If you do King County, they have 5 years worth, which, at that point you can start talking about trends, but we don't really have trends.
Was there anything in the 2007 study that is analogous to any of this?
It is kind of. They used a different model for the thing. They used the ICLEI model, and there are similarities between them, but I don't know what we can compare literally apples to apples, right? It's unclear.
Tracy, could I weigh in and ask you a question here?
Sure, go ahead.
In the prior slide that you showed with the balance, first it was King County and then the smaller numbers, Lake Forest Park. So is that because Lake Forest Park is just a much smaller entity that was measured, or is it because we're already doing such a stellar job?
I'm glad you asked that question because that's the lead into my next thing that I wanted to show you all. And that's basically per capita by jurisdiction. You're right. We are a tiny percent of the population of King County. So how do we stack up? Well, here we are. So basically I took King County as a whole. That's the big bar on the left. Kenmore, Lake Forest Park, shoreline. And so you notice that we have a much lower per capita, as Sarah said, something like 7.5 tons of 7.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide per capita per year, whereas King County's average is 12.2. So we're doing pretty well in that regard. Okay, we're even doing better than Kenmore, which actually, frankly, I was a little bit surprised by. But Kenmore's built environment, I suspect, contains way more natural gas than ours does.
In that big plant, cement plant.
Right, and then also Puget Sound energy as opposed to Seattle City Light. Yeah, Shoreline is Shoreline's comparable to us. I figured mainly because A, they're on Seattle City Light as well, right? And B, they've already passed their natural gas phasing out ordinance, so, yeah. All right, so that's what I thought was kind of interesting. So does that address your question, Linda? Cool. Okay, so the rest of it is.
Yes, thank
Okay, thanks. All right, so the rest of it is pretty, specialized. Built environment, for instance, shows Lake Forest Park's emissions from its buildings. Becker here. I'm not sure what numbers, what conclusions, sorry, why are you doing this? Okay, what did I just do? Okay, this has got to go away.
Oh, just click on your screen.
Okay, thank you. Man, I am not a PC person. Let me just put it that way. Okay. All right, but the point is basically, I'm not sure. We don't see any trends, obviously, but in terms of the raw numbers themselves, I'm not really sure what any of this particularly means, whether it's good or bad. Same thing with transportation. Yeah, to me, the interesting numbers are the ones that are in the upper left corner, which talk about, what our total metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent we're doing, and then solid waste. And the point is, now we have this baseline. They're intending on doing this kind of emissions analysis at least for the next few years. Depends on how long their funding lasts. But the point is, at least to that point, we'll be able to make at least an apples to apples comparison. So I think that's what the important thing is. This sets our baseline, essentially. Any questions? I'll stop sharing.
But on the solid waste, is that just a King County average that they then attribute to the population of Lake Forest Park?
Yes.
So it's not really specific to us.
Could I offer to share my screen and show exactly that issue?
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. So what I did, and hopefully you're looking at activity type, activity name, etc.
Yeah, but we can read it. I mean, I can't read it.
Okay, I will zoom. Okay, hopefully that's a little better.
Yes.
So what I did is I took a look at all the categories for which we were rated. As Tracy noted, there are some areas where we didn't have any assigned values for any number of reasons. And I think an obvious one is commercial use of electricity. We know we have commercial use of electricity in Lake Forest Park. However, it appears to have been lumped in with our residential use. So there are issues like that I'm not going to get into because I don't want to get too granular with the K4C analysis. I think it will bore everybody and not be useful. What I do want to show is these areas where we were basically assigned 100% plus or minus a little bit of the average value of King County on a per person basis. So it's just, if you look at the per capita assignment for fuel oil, we got the standard per capita assignment for fuel oil. For refrigerants, we got the standard King County assignment for refrigerants. This is, I want to emphasize, it's critical that King County look at the county-wide sources and spend their effort trying to address a county-wide issue. And then when they're trying to be granular for little communities like ours, instead of starting at the most granular level and building an analysis up, they're saying, okay, what's your contribution proportionally? So there are several categories where we were given virtually an identical proportion just on a per capita basis. And those are fuel oil, refrigerants, transportation and other mobile resources, and passenger vehicles. There might be slight tweaks in those, but they're not significant. For solid waste, which was Jessica's question, for the compost, we actually are apparently generating slightly more compost than other communities and slightly less solid waste. So for these two units here, strangely, this is all good news. We're doing a good job with yard waste and a good job with minimizing actual solid waste that's going to the landfill. I don't know where these data came from. I don't know how the standard values were tweaked to apply to our community, but that's one of the things the data team is going to work on to try to find out what the real values here in Lake Forest Park are.
Some of those values, Anne, are related to the amount of yard waste you can recycle in Lake Forest
That's
Park.
what I think too. I think they probably have adjusted the values based on the proportion of yard waste to solid waste relative to other areas in King County, because everybody except the city of Seattle discharges their waste to King County landfill at Cedar Hills. So I think the places where we see really, for instance, when we look at our electricity, our carbon footprint relative to electricity, since so much of our city is on Seattle City Light, we have a relatively light footprint compared to cities that derive all their energy from Puget Sound energy. So we do see adjustments like this. This is not a bad starting place at all, but one of the things we want to do as we move forward is just keep track of how these numbers were derived, and again, whether or not they, how they actually fit our community, what we can do to track what's going on our own. If we look at things like solid waste, we may be able to work with the public to actually track solid waste management in our community quite closely. Fuel oil, we may be able to track more closely. Number of electric vehicles and gas vehicles. We can exactly track the vehicles that are registered to Lake Forest Park addresses. We can track that quite precisely. So all of this is incredibly informative. I'm really pleased to see what the county has done. And I'm also looking forward to developing paths for us being able to help our community understand where we can make progress. As Brian points out, we need to improve upon everything, everywhere. And also really encourage us to understand how we are making progress.
I'd like to ask this question in terms of us looking at this, and just in general, what does this data tell us that's important for us moving forward?
One thing that jumps out at me is that the, just kind of connecting the survey results with the data that Ann showed is that the, we're not going to make a big difference in terms of electricity. And a lot of people think solar panels are the answer. So in Lake Forest Park, it seems like that's a disconnect.
Okay.
Something, a major like education component.
Can I put a little red flag in there?
Please.
In Washington, there's a lot of people that are trying to take down the dams for saving the salmon. So I think we have to be mindful that solar can help if that's going to happen, if we're going to end up having less in the future. So this is thinking into the future, right? If that's something that actually does happen, solar might have a bigger role to play than we currently imagine.
And it will have an even bigger role to play if we get home scale storage, battery storage units.
Yeah.
And that also would address one of the comments we saw in the survey about if you have an all electric house with no on-site storage of electricity and the power goes out, you can run into issues, which is why, Jessica mentioned she needs backup power and has installed backup power because she cannot tolerate being without electricity, without power for extended periods. So, and there are many members of our community in that situation. So, Sarah, where I see us being able to look at this is, first off, we need to be aware of how important it is to address issues of this magnitude at an international, national, state, and county scale. That some of when we look at that marvelous wedge analysis, which, I understand why people like it. It's a cool graphic. A lot of that wedge is national and state level policies, supported by county level policies, and then also by city policies. If we look at cities like Shoreline who are not permitting additional hookups to natural gas, that's an important policy. Same with City of Seattle. So I think it's informative on that level to understand the role that policy is going to play. The next aspect that I would look at is when we look at the components like housing and transportation and potentially refrigerants, we start looking at specific actions that we can do within our city, either at an individual scale, within the city government, which is a small component, but the city, the school districts, potentially churches or other organizations that have a somewhat larger footprint, and businesses, retail businesses in our community. And then also looking at where we can have an influence by appropriate municipal policy.
Okay,
They all weave together.
yeah. I was struck that, oh, go ahead.
I think the first thing that I thought was it reinforces a lot of things that we had seen in other inventories, which is that, the big things are on-road vehicles, building heat, natural gas. Aviation is an interesting case.
Yeah.
But I think that, at the end of Kenmore's plan, they had a nice analysis of cost effectiveness of interventions, which I think is something that, we knew that, okay, we can probably all guess the top three, but when we know exactly, or not exactly, but, within an order of magnitude where they are proportionally, we can say, okay, well, if it's going to cost, this much to, get this difference, then we can say, okay, well, this is where we want to be spending our money. We don't want to be spending money on something that's going to only, shave 2% of the, chunk to 1%. And so, I mean, there are things that, potentially aren't going to cost money, like, requiring all new constructions to have, electric appliances. That's something that doesn't require a budgetary note or whatever. But as far as, tackling all of the big things like on-road vehicles, there's going to be, money involved, and we're going to have to look at the cost effectiveness of the different options.
Yeah, I've been thinking one of the things we need to think about is people saying, well, I can't change this. And part of it is saying, well, when your water heater crashes, we want to move people towards sort of the natural, a piece of this is the natural evolution of
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A friend and I were talking about this, like he's looking at replacing his water heater and was comparing, like getting another natural gas one versus an electric one. And it's like, well, if the electric one is 20,000, but natural gas is 10,000, and the IRA credit is for 10,000, it doesn't actually make the electric one cheaper. It just makes it so that it's like on par. And that's like an education thing. Like if you want people to make that switch, you have to, not come at it from the angle of like, oh, it's going to be so much cheaper, because it's not going to be cheaper up front. It's going to save money over time. And it's also, letting people know that those tax credits exist.
Are there other things that we, okay.
Sorry, can I just say something? Sorry,
Please.
just to get on Matt's point, I think education, if there's one thing this committee should really be focusing on is educating the people of Lake Forest Park. And that really, I think, is going to be way more important than showing them a bunch of numbers. I mean, I really feel like people will make the right choices if they are well informed. And if they've got the information in front of them, if they've got good way of, I mean, there's a lot of really inventive ways we can convey some of this information to these people. So it's not something that they have to look at a number and get all googly eyed and wonder what the hell is going on. We could make it a vision, like going back to your picture, Sarah, of your metric ton. Those are kinds of things that we should be really focusing on. I don't know. I could be I guess maybe I'm just a little bit off the
Just 'cause
data
you're
thing
an
right here.
educator. No, actually, that was my next question, was we've got short-term issues that we can come to in the education piece, like we're doing newsletters, or we can do that. And there's some, if we're gonna have a newsletter that goes out, November sometime, right? So we can add to the city's newsletter. So we got an opportunity to do that. What should we be that's a piece to write about, but what is it that we should do? We're not ready to talk about our survey response yet, but so.
Well, I like a lot of your slides that you had up, Karen. I saw, sorry, Jessica's got her hand up. I'll let her talk.
So, well, I was just gonna say that, so we use a similar tactic to what Brian was talking about when we talk to shoreline property owners about things like adding trees to their home or managing their drainage. We're not expecting them to make those changes like tomorrow, we're not expecting, it's more about giving them the information so that as they do perform maintenance, or they have funds, or they're looking at upgrades, that they know what the right choices are that are going to be best in terms of how to manage their shoreline and how to prevent erosion and loss and deal with climate change and all those other things. So I think it's a similar approach here. So it seems like if we could maybe we take a topic, per newsletter, and we just focus on one kind of topic, provide some resources, provide some ideas. Don't make it overwhelming. Let's not try to tackle everything at once, right? So maybe it's, natural gas, or maybe it's electric appliances. Why? Who cares? Or, the tax credits, for example, which appliances to think about. I think it's more useful to take a topic and get a little bit deeper into that one topic than try to cover everything.
Ooh, a climate action of the month. There you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
I like that idea a lot.
So what do you think ought to be next month? That's all.
And I'll just say, like, it usually takes people like 7 times to see something out in the wild to really like remember. Yeah. So,
All right, well, I'll come up with something and write it. But if you have any ideas, please send them to me.
So, one thing I found very exciting in that survey is the group of comments from people who felt that climate change was unavoidable, or not worth addressing, or wasn't affecting them at all, or and that everything we might want to do to address it would be impossible in one way or another, or irresponsible in one way or another, or over cost. I think reviewing those comments in particular, and the what's holding me back comments in particular, is going to be incredibly valuable for us, because when we get feedback from an entire community, it's exceptionally valuable to have the input from the people who are challenging the path, and making certain that we consider and address challenges is going to be an important part of the education component.
I think we have to wait till it's all done, don't you, Ann?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
maybe this
Do we have to
first
wait
one.
till the end of the survey? I mean, we can look at it now.
Yeah, I think starting to pull some of that information together to inform topics that we want to bring forward in discussion, and
Well,
will
we
be
have-
very helpful.
We have 2 venues, two things. One is this, what is the city's newsletter?
the e-news.
Oh, the e-news. That goes out, I think that has the broadest reach. Then we have our own Notify Me, which has 30 people, 60 people on it.
Yeah.
So recently, so that's a new one. Those are people who specifically said they're interested. And it may be that we have two things that begin to target them. Well, I think we're done today. Unless anybody has something, oh, Tracy wants to say something.
And Tamara has her hand up also,
Okay.
and
Okay.
Linda.
Okay, all right, we're not done. Okay.
So for this first newsletter next month, I mean, kind of to Anne's point, maybe it's just like an intro to climate change, where we just sort of have like a climate change 101, and we can use that great graphic that you found showing what 1 metric ton looks like. And we can kind of look at some of the write-in answers that people wrote about like why climate change doesn't really exist or why it's not important, and just sort of debunk some of those theories.
Okay.
Like a climate change 101 could be the first.
He does something like we have holidays coming up, like holiday friendly climate ideas too.
What to do with your pumpkins?
I saw something about that recently, but even just like, I buy my dad sometimes tools for Christmas, like just a reminder, like, buy electric or buy like repurposed stuff or, I don't know.
Okay, tools and event, not, what is it, not gifts, but experiences, right?
Yeah.
Don't buy shiny paper. Okay, we can do that one. All right. Somebody else had their hand up. Linda.
Yeah, I put something in the Rotary weekly newsletter that comes out called The Connector. And so that could be just another little avenue of getting to people who may not be looking at some of this other stuff.
Great. Well, when we send it, we'll send it out to all of you as well.
Okay, good.
And
it should probably, it should probably connect back to the K4C, just to connect it back to King County, right? In the sort of climate change 101. So people understand, the role of Lake Forest Park within the county and what we're working towards,
And why some of these large policies have been passed.
Yeah.
And I want to keep everything in the frame of we're trying to build a society and civilization for the future. And that future should not include lots of people walking around wearing gray and never smiling. We want people to have good housing, pleasant natural environment, healthy air, be able to get to and from shops, be able to live their lives, but not. And a part of that is managing the climate so that it's sustainable, and we're not going to shops wearing our N95 masks to protect from smoke and traveling at night to avoid the oppressive heat of day. So, building to a positive endpoint as opposed to the potential downside of inaction, which may be less expensive in the short run, but pretty devastating for the next generation and generations after that.
Great. Tracy?
Okay, so 3 things. The first one is basically, Brian, I did find that the under off-road vehicles, it does include pleasure craft, so it does. All right. Secondly, on Anne's point of basically trying to build to a positive thing, I was invited to basically attend a meeting of the Sustainability Ambassadors. They're a nonprofit organization that works with high school students and teachers to make modules that the students can execute to help cities enact or implement their climate action plans. And a lot of the lesson plans are around measuring things. So there is definitely a sciencey component in there. All right. And so this is kind of aimed at Jessica and at Tamara, but the fact is that we've got basically people in our community who probably can work on these kinds of problems, and high school students are a great resource. So if we can get Shorecrest's environmental club interested in this might be a good thing. As far as I can tell, basically they have cohorts, and they'll be starting a new cohort this quarter or this semester. And so if you're interested, contact me and I'll get you in contact with the head of that program. They work in conjunction with K4C, which is one thing I really love about them. And so, there's definitely basically a sort of an official imprint on it. All right, and the final thing is much shorter term. I finally was able to arrange a meeting with Rob Karlinski, who is the Kenmore city administrator. And he said, yes, this is great. Would love to talk to you. Can't basically come to one of our meetings, but he wants to basically meet with me on Friday. He's also bringing along Richard Sawyer, who's the environmental services manager for Kenmore, and spearheaded the effort to get their CAP together. So if anybody basically wants to join me, suggest a time, because he says anytime on Friday between 9 and 4:30. I just got this, so sorry for the short notice. But if anybody would like to join me, they'd be okay with that. Okay, great. So Sarah wants to move on.
I should have some time on Friday, Tracy.
So yeah,
I should have some time on Friday. Just
Okay.
let me know.
Yeah.
please send me times you guys are available, because that would be really, really, really good. Okay, under 5 people.
I'm looking, I will probably be available, Tracy. I'll send you an email.
Okay, great. All right, so if I can narrow down the time though.
Matthew, too.
Yeah,
Are we talking physically meeting?
Yeah, physically.
Okay, then
Oh, okay, shoot, okay. All right, so I'll keep you in mind if we do this, so, all right. But do send me a time that you guys are available. The other thing is that if you can't come, but still have a question you'd like to pose, send it to one of us who are going, and that way we can make sure to ask that question to get an answer. I told them specifically we were interested in timeline and costs. One of the things that I was able to ask for, I don't know if I'm going to get, but I'm going to ask for, is that I realized that, we found out from Melanie O'Kane that Kenmore spent 60 to 100K, right, on their whole climate action plan. And certainly she said the costs increased as time went on. Right now, we're budgeted for 30,000 at something like 15 per year, so that can be adjusted. The point is basically, if we want to do something in the second year, that is to say 2024, that's going to be more than what we do in 2023. I asked for 5K more for the second year. So hopefully I'll get that. Indications are good, but of course, until the budget's final, nothing's final. So that's one of the things I wanted to ask was basically, what did you end up spending money on, and when did you end up spending money on it? So.
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. It's sort of against our principles to leave early, but I think we could. So unless there's something else, we'll see you at our next meeting, which is early December.
Right.
So Corey, I'll keep you up to date. Please let me know. I will. Dana, are you listening to us?
December 6th.
December 6th.
I am. I'm listening. Yes.
Are you up for editing still?
Yes, I am up for editing. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
All right.
Send me an email.
Yes. You don't sound well.
I got COVID.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care of yourself.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, we're done.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I want to show you. Okay. I want to show you what it sent, Jessica. I took these, and I'll send this to you, but I took